Keep your head up. You're not alone. Keep your head up. Keep your head up. We're halfway home.
It's time for Your Voices of Hope, a video podcast program that offers straight talk on some of the major issues facing us today: addiction, domestic violence, homelessness, human trafficking, and suicide. But more than that, it's our desire to inspire hope. Now, your host, Michelle Byer.
My guest today has 5 prison numbers, set close to 10 houses on fire, all due to his drug use. Today, he will tell you how he changed his life completely around to now having one of the most popular YouTube channels, Reading Funk. Please welcome my guest, John Funk. Hi, John.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you for joining me today. You know, John, you have got to be one of the most interesting people that I have met in a very long time and that I have interviewed to date, really, because your story is incredible and unique. And so I'm so excited for all of my listeners to really get to listen to this because you're such an inspiration, and I'm so excited for this. So let's jump right in and get into the meat of this. So let's start off with, you actually had a pretty normal semi-start. You had a mom and a dad that you grew up with.
Yeah.
So, which a lot of people, that they think, people on drugs, well, they came from a broken home and they were this and they were that, but you did not come from a broken home.
Right.
So, but what helped you become an addict was that you are ADHD. Your doctor put you on Ritalin.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened when you were put on Ritalin.
Well, I'm 35 years old, and people remember back in the late 80s and early 90s, it was extremely popular to put children on Ritalin. And I was put on Ritalin. And I remember that it didn't seem to influence me in any way. And my doctor increased the dosage early on. And I was probably like 8 or 10 years old at the oldest. And I remember when he increased the dosage strength that I was intoxicated by that. I had realized that there was a whole nother way to feel. And I had never even considered that before. And I quickly started abusing those, not every day, but I would save up a few and take them all at once. So I was abusing them a couple of times per week, and it continued on from there. By the time I was 12 years old, I was on Adderall and eating a lot of them at once. I was like a drug addict by the time I was 12 years old, and I was stealing other pills and everything by that point. So it was just a real disaster when I was a child.
That is amazing to me that at the age of 8, you already were abusing Ritalin.
Yeah.
And at the age of 12, becoming a full-blown addict. Most children, and I had said this to you earlier, that most children would never even dream of taking their Ritalin, their medication in general, doubling it, saving it. Right. So that does show me a sign of your intelligence, which when talking to you, your intelligence is really out there. You've just got a brain that is amazing, but keeping up with you is a little tough. And I've, just to let the audience know, I know John through my job. And John, if you don't mind, is a client of
Yeah.
mine
Right.
who is just working his way, like I said, to becoming, and I'm going to explain more of it later, but let me just say that John's a client of mine who will eventually not be. And I'm so excited for him, but I'm just, you know, so his drug use really took him pretty deep, far down to a dark place. John, you graduated high school, but that wasn't even easy to do, was it? Because your drug use got pretty severe through school, didn't it?
It did, and I did graduate a year behind schedule, thanks to the good graces of a teacher that helped me. But my life was just an utter disaster with horrible decision making very early on, and it was so incredibly destructive that it was nearly absurd how just crazy it was. And I burned every bridge. I stole from everyone I ever knew. I did anything I could possibly do to sustain being intoxicated before I was even probably 12 years old. So it's just really unfortunate. And I know there are a lot of people that when they're young, they're introduced to a drug, either by a doctor or a family member or a friend or a stranger, and they don't realize that they're at risk for completely destroying their lives. And it can just be a real horrible situation, and it has been for countless people.
So by the age of 20, now you had some minor misdemeanors when you were under the age of 18,
Yeah.
but by the time you were over 18, you had some serious charges. You had a few felonies. Tell us about those felonies, that you started getting.
Yeah, so I started regularly committing crimes to stay intoxicated. And when I was probably 25 years old, I decided to go into a house to get the plumbing out of there to take to the scrapyard so that I could get a small little portion of whatever it was I needed at that time. And I got caught for that. And I went to a community corrections center for that case. And while I was at that place, I desired to be sober. I had thought that I had hit rock bottom, and I was gung-ho about sobriety. And this can happen to a lot of people where they're very serious about getting clean, and then something happens that stops them. But I got out of there and I started using again, and I was put in prison for the first time as a violation for the probation after that place. But there were a lot of times where I was put in jail or in a facility because of my destructive behaviors. And I felt good when I finally came off the narcotic drugs and I started thinking things through. It all made perfect sense that I was going to live a different way. But my brain was not cooperating with me for the longest time. But yeah, I had a lot of arrests. I played cat and mouse with the police where I was burning things down, which seems bizarre, and it is, but it was directly related to me being drunk on alcohol and really messed up on benzodiazepine tranquilizers, which were one of the worst things I ever had to deal with, because I would just get the most craziest ideas when I was on those things. It would turn me into some kind of monster. And I was just being as destructive as I could, probably because I had issues that I needed to be working through like a normal person would. And I was not doing any of those things because I was just consistently trying to use for all of those years. And I had a meltdown when I was burning those places down, and they finally did catch me and put me in prison for that. But that was an example, I think, of a person who had maybe some mental health issues and some depression, who was discouraged with life. And then I was taking those huge doses of narcotics on top of that, and like the top blew off. And that went on for a while. And that was basically the story of my life, what I just described.
Now, you at one point self-diagnosed yourself.
Yeah, I did. I had come to the conclusion that I was a psychopath, and I read uh, the mental health diagnostic book, the DSM, and I investigated antisocial personality disorder, which is the proper term for a sociopath. And I thought that that fit me very well. I even went out and seeked out counseling for this disorder because I was living such a destructive life and not playing by the rules and violating every friendship and relationship and acquaintance to try to pry some intoxication out of every scenario that I could, that I thought that I was a psychopath. And I was convinced of that. And it turned out when I finally dropped the addiction problem, when I finally started to overcome that and I was clean for a while, all of those psychotic symptoms just vanished. And I started having proper relationships with no slips or anything like that. It was really all of that crazy intention was caused by my malfunctioning brain because I was using.
That is incredible. You know, what drugs and alcohol can actually do to our brains
Yeah.
and make us think that we're something that we're not. You know, sometimes it makes us feel like we're Superman,
Yeah.
you know. So so you decided enough is enough.
Mm.
What made you decide that? And when was this? What year was this?
I had been released from prison for the fifth time in August of 2017. And I slept on the ground for a little while. My addiction problem was so bad that I actually slept maybe the first night at the local homeless shelter, but I was thrown out of there the next day because I came in intoxicated. So I slept outside and ended up getting my current apartment. And I went on a methamphetamine and heroin binge for probably about 2 or 3 months. And there were people in here sleeping on my floor and everything. This was just a real big problem. And I was becoming very, very distressed, very distressed. And I remember after using and coming down at some point that I was crawling around on my bedroom floor looking to see if I had dropped anything because I needed relief bad. Piece of weed, anything I could find to give me some relief. And I remember thinking that I was thinking to myself, what would be the least painful way to commit suicide? Because I just really had just about had it with all that distress and coming down off stuff. And I was so sick all the time. And that was what led me to seeking out treatment with ComQuest because it seemed to me that I was either going to kill myself shortly if I didn't stop, or I was going to have to figure out another way.
I'm glad you figured out another way, because I got to meet you. I was working in another program for ICANN housing. So when that program ended, I was able to work in the program that you're in. And it turns out where we have our similar professions, you know, so we connected on that level. And
Yeah, I remember that. That was a great discussion we had that day.
it really was. So you decide to go to ComQuest and you joined their IOP program. Tell us about that program.
I became a Suboxone patient, and one of the components of that is the IOP program with group therapy and whatnot. I went on to a program where they were medicating me for the addiction, which is a very controversial program because I know that there are a lot of people that don't do well with that. But I'm a good example of someone that actually came off of drugs with that program. I went up there and I asked them to help me out. And I remember I was like, my arm was bleeding when I went in because I had just shot up. I had to be intoxicated to get the courage to go in. But they put me on the program, and that medicine helped me a lot because it basically just arrested all my problems. Although I still had a lot of work to do at getting better, that program medicated me in such a way that I wasn't obsessed with getting high anymore. My physician was providing what I needed to work through. And over a period of time, I started weaning off of that medicine. And it just worked like a textbook case. It worked for me. That really did. And of course, I went through counseling and everything, trying to understand my mind and the potential for relapse and everything, because it's such a complex issue, is addiction. It's something that is very hard to understand what's going on in the brain. But yeah, I went to ComQuest and I went to Summit Psychological to work the other component, which is the mental health issue and depression and anxiety, and not trying to medicate myself again. So yeah, I seeked out mental health counseling and substance abuse counseling simultaneously.
And that in itself shows your dedication, because that is something most don't do. And you had mentioned the downside of Suboxone. What is the downside? You would think that there is no downside.
There are a couple downsides. One of those downsides is if you were to go up to the clinic up there, well, you would find that a lot of people sell their medication to continue on using. And ComQuest weeds those people out in time, but that's like a real serious problem because people don't get it right the first time. A lot of people go up there with good intentions, and then they just keep on using, which is, a common thing when people seek out rehabilitation. Probably, the majority end up messing it up. But another problem is that you can become physically hooked on the medicine because it's an opioid that they're giving you. They're basically medicating a heroin addiction. So it's a powerful medication that they put you on. And some people find that they can't come off of it in time. And I've been more fortunate than some other people have in that respect because ComQuest weans you off of the medication generally over about a year period. But that can be the problem, is you can become hooked on the medicine, which is a far better situation than using and being arrested, never owning anything, and violating everybody that you come across because you're completely crazed with your addiction problem. It's a whole lot better scenario to take something that your physician gives you where they're carefully monitoring you and making you do drug screens and everything like that. But there have been people that when they wanted to finally stop taking the medicine found that they couldn't do it. So that it's a complex issue with that program.
It is. And I remember when I first started in the business of recovery, peer support, and the radio show, I had spoken with Keith Hohottle, the executive director or the CEO of ComQuest.
Yeah.
And I told him I did not like that program because it keeps you high.
Yeah.
And he said, you need to get more knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you got the knowledge, he believed I would change my mind. And I did. Because I also interviewed many people that used that program that were very successful. And some of those people are now my friends.
Yeah.
I love the program. I mean, yes, as you said, it works with some and it doesn't with others. And it's not that the program works, it's that you worked that program. With any program, you have to work the program. Would you agree?
Yeah, that is true. And it's quite difficult because it's such a hard thing to understand sometimes, how a person can go from completely dedicated and committed one moment and just another moment into the future, they're out looking for their drug dealer and so on and so forth. So you've really got to keep up on therapy and study and understanding the problem so that you can be more likely to not make a mistake.
So how long have you been sober for?
For 3 years will be this upcoming month. And, it's been my life is still in the beginning. Now I feel like I'm probably about 17 years old right now, where I haven't really accomplished much, but I have completely changed how I'm living. For example, I had a lot of negative influences in people, and I literally had to cut everyone off so that I couldn't put myself at risk. Um, and like a lot of people were offended by that, but
Mhm.
I've got to make sure that I'm not in crisis here. So I had to be very careful who I associate myself with. I literally at this point still don't even have a friend. I haven't had anyone in my house for uh, like over 2.5 years, not a single visitor, because I'm afraid that someone's going to come in here that's going to do something that causes me to start using again. I'm extremely cautious. About who I deal with. And in some sense, that is kind of lonely. I've been basically working at my issues and trying to make something of myself for over 2.5 years completely by myself. But it's a better situation. And if I can just get some success here with the things I'm working on, then I think proper relationships will come into play and so on and so forth. But I'm rambling here. I'm going to give it back to you.
No, you're not rambling. This is what I want. We want. I interview because we need you to tell us how to get sober, remain sober. We need an inspiration, and you're an inspiration. So please do not stop. If you have a thought, continue that thought and just keep going. So now you're alone, but again, you changed all your people and got rid of them, and you have to do that in sobriety, because
Yeah.
if you don't, like you said, your your chances of staying sober are highly unlikely,
Right.
which is the downfall of a lot of people. They don't get that, and they keep the old people in their lives. So you are currently doing, and there's a lot of books behind you, and did you read all those books?
I have not read all of those ones. The ones up here, I've read most of them, but it's a work in progress.
Phew. I'm not a big reader, but you have a YouTube channel,
Yeah.
Reading Funk,
Right.
and that is where you read books and you review them online. What made you start this YouTube channel?
Yeah, so I do. I'm even having some New York Times best-selling author interviews coming up soon, so I might finally get a break after this hard work and frustration I put in. But after I stopped using, I started reading because I hadn't been doing that when I was on drugs, because there's just no way I could have done that. But I, just out of curiosity, because I'm big on YouTube, I decided to film myself talking about a book, and I put it up, and not very many people watched it, but I decided to keep going on with it. I'd finish one and put a review up, and it started to finally get a little bit of attention. And at some point, I guess I did this for a couple of years where it wasn't a big deal, and I started thinking about my situation, because my situation is a real problem, because I've committed many, many crimes. And I burned every bridge that I had ever crossed. And I'm really in a position where a lot of people find themselves, I think, where you've destroyed your life so bad that, like, what's sobriety going to do for you? You know what I mean? And I think that can be a huge trigger for people, is they think that they've passed the point of no return. There's no way they're ever going to be able to come around and lead a normal, prosperous life, because there's just so many things going against that person. But I thought to myself, one way that I might be able to get around finding decent employment is to be an online video content creator, because no one's going to know what my rap sheet is, or that I considered, or that I've been such a horrible person for all that time. I thought I could get a clean slate here as a video content creator. So I started taking the book reviews more seriously. I tried to get better at them and get more people to watch them. And now I'm trying to do a philosophical channel, and it's going pretty well. And I'm trying some other themes with online content generation. And it's been a process, and I'm still in the beginning of learning all of this. But when you're in a horrible situation and you've destroyed your life, you might have to find a way out of that is not just the straight and narrow. You might have to try a back way or some unique and unusual thing that most people wouldn't be interested in doing for a living. And that is why I'm on YouTube, because nobody cares about my history. They don't even know about it. So that's one reason that I'm big on trying to figure out how to be a good content generator.
Your early videos, I've watched a few of them. You had asked me to watch them, analyze them, give you some pointers. So I had watched your early videos, and I really couldn't give you any pointers. And the reason why is because you're a natural. I believe that you're going to go very far. And you had started these, did you use your phone?
Yeah.
And you were at the library, correct?
I was just doing it here at home first, but at some point I did start recording myself in the library talking about different literary issues, and the librarians were fine with that there. And it kind of made a nice background, the library in the background while I'm talking. And then, of course, I built this awesome bookcase behind me for my new background. But
It's beautiful.
I started with nothing but just a cheap smartphone.
Well, you know, watching your progression, which I am so blessed that I get to watch this. As a peer support specialist, it is very rare that I get to watch, and working in the homeless community, it's very rare that I get to watch someone progress and want to work their way out of our housing and get a job and become successful. And I'm going to miss you because you're going to be gone. And the only way I'm going to be able to see you is on TV. You know, I'm sure we'll connect again, but, you know, so now you've got sobriety. You've got this YouTube channel. I've looked at your YouTube channel and your followers. I'm so jealous of your. What do you think? What are you thinking when you ask a question and you had a question about what is it that people want to see, or what book would they like you to review for them? And you get 160 right off the bat of answers.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
Well, I had a comment the other day where someone told me they had read a book that I recommended and it had some big impact on their life. So that was like a motivator. When I get those motivators, it prevents me from giving up. I can tell you that, because what I want to do here is I want to take, I guess there's like I see my life as like a balance. There's two different sides here. And all that destruction that I did really balanced it toward the negative, where I was a menace to the world. I was a scab on the face of the world. And I want to somehow have an influence on the world where I can start to work that balance back. And at the end of my life, perhaps I could have tipped it in the other way. But it does feel good when I get positive feedback where someone tells me that they've reconsidered their position, or they've read something that's helped them in some way, because there's the entertainment value of talking about something that's of interest to someone, and nothing beyond that. But there's also the ability to help people, to have a real influence on people. And I really want to get better with that and help people more. So I'm really looking forward to keep plugging away here and get a bigger audience to where I can really have a positive influence on the world.
How many followers or subscriptions do you have right now on your YouTube channel? Do you know?
I have just over 2,500 on my Reading Funk channel, which is a small channel. It's a small channel. And I have some ideas for the future with content, like William Kent Kruger, a best-selling author, is coming on. That's going to get me a little bit more recognition, and I just want to keep building up and building up, and I'm not going to give up on this. And every time I come across some horrible nightmare problem with a computer, or something's wrong, or something doesn't come through, I've just got to keep plugging away and keep plugging away and keep plugging away. And I'm going to be so persistent that I'm not going to fail with this.
Now, your Facebook page,
Yeah.
I went on that, and the followers you have on that, I was just dumbfounded because,
Yeah.
again, it's not easy to get that many followers. Your followers on that were what, 42,000? What was?
It's at around 61,000, and it is an extremely hard challenge to get a YouTube channel going and getting people to watch it, and especially if you don't even know what you're doing at first, and with the social media, it's a challenge. But I'm not going to give up on it because it's an outlet for me that I can have some success in. And I really like it. I'm not just doing it because it's the only thing that I could possibly do because of how bad I've destroyed my life. I like the fact that I can get online. Any subject or topic I want to cover, I can get into it. For example, I have a secular philosophical channel called Atheist Incorporated, where I do debates with people on religion and other issues. And I have a computer scientist named Bernardo Kastrup coming on, and he's going to debate me. He has kind of a religious position, and he's like an extremely sophisticated thinker. So I'm actually really intimidated about that one. But I'm just all about getting people to read good books, of course, but also getting people to think about different issues and what they believe, and just philosophical kinds of things. And I'm trying to become more knowledgeable and everything like that. I'd love to get a university degree in the future. If I were to become successful, that's the route I would take, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, the word "if" needs to come out of your vocabulary, first of all. Okay. Secondly, that I was about to touch on that degree because you had mentioned that to me before, which is where I was going with your intelligence. Philosophy is a very, well, for me, it would be boring. And hard. I'd be like, yeah. So, what is interesting about philosophy?
I am just curious about reality and how it works, and if there's a God or if there's not one, and a lot of other issues about morality and different things like that. And I just like conversing with people on those issues. I like reading books about it. And, maybe I wouldn't be a philosopher. I would like the degree in philosophy, but I'm really interested in science too. And, I feel like I'm at a huge disadvantage because I wasted all those years on all that horrible stuff that I was doing. So I'm not really sure. Like I said, I feel like I'm like in my late teens again, and I'm trying to think about what I want to do and everything. So I really don't know. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I know I'm not going to use again. Because I would be truly doomed. If I used again, I would be truly doomed.
I would probably kick your butt. Where do you see yourself, John, in the next 5 years?
I see myself struggling for a couple more years. I see a lot of frustration and a lot of problems, and I see a lot of doubt coming up, but I am persistent on pushing through. I think that if I continue to work through, even with the problems and the disappointments, within 5 years, I think I could be earning that degree.
And I believe that. And although everything we do in life has its frustrations, everything we do in life has its ups and downs, but it's what we do once we're done with being that down, it's how we come back up.
Yeah.
Sometimes failing is a part of success. success is not a straight line. Success is a big squiggly line.
Mm-hmm.
So you are going to succeed. There's no way you're not going to. So, John, one final thought
Yeah.
that you would like to leave our audience with today, what would that be?
I had a change in consciousness when I became suicidal. And it helped me a lot because I felt that some bricks dropped off my shoulders. And I something that's really important here that I want to mention is that I set some rules for myself. I'll mention 3 of them here. When I finally got off drugs, I realized that I had this repetitious pattern that was happening where I would make a little progress and then I would fall down. And I would make a little progress and I'd get a little support behind me and then I would make the same horrible decisions over once again. And this went on for many years. So I set some rules for myself. The first rule was that I was going to get up and go out and run 6 miles at minimum every single day, no matter if I didn't sleep right or what else was happening or if I had to change my schedule to get it done, that I would just do it, that I would get up and go. And I am doing that, and I don't take any days off. There was one time when I was injured, and I ran injured for about a week, and I realized sometimes you do got to take a day off because I had to recover. But that was one rule, that I was going to rigorously exercise every day, no matter what, no matter if I was depressed or not. Another issue that I just resolved on a dime was that I wasn't going to drink soda pop or eat any unhealthy foods or candies or anything like that anymore. And my diet is really well now with vegetables and beans and everything like that. I'm even cutting back on meat, shooting in the direction of veganism. But that was like another thing, just on a dime. I said, I'm not going to do it anymore. And I left it behind. And the third issue that was extremely important was I said that I wasn't going to let anyone in my house anymore. And I don't answer my buzzer when anyone comes here. And if someone knocks at the door, I step out in the hallway to talk to the person because like this is my humble place of safety in here. And I could just see someone breaching in here and putting narcotics out. And my psychological condition is just in just the right state that I'll collapse. So I'm extremely careful. And I think a lot of people have problems when they're trying to recover, either with someone that they're attached to that's still using, and they allow that person to keep coming in, and then it all goes to ruin. So I think that you've got to be extremely cautious about your safe zone so that no one can breach it for any reason. Because if somebody that's a danger to you is coming in there, you are not going to make it. So I think you should set a few basic rules for yourself and just commit to those. I think that's really important. So there's my final thought.
Wow. Wow. You just brought some tears to my eyes. And I'm very proud of you, John. I am very, very proud of you. Sorry.
Well, that means a lot to me because, like I said, I don't have a single friend and I don't have any family members or nothing like that. I'm just on my own here. So it's almost flattering to me that you even care about what I do. So, yeah.
Well, I care. I definitely care. And like I said, I can't wait to see where you go from here. And I know it's just going to be so far. I can't wait to interview you in another 5 years. I probably won't. I'll have to go through your publicist.
I'll have made it. If that comes to fruition, I'll have been a success at that point.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, but actually, I'll be one of those people that will have the in, and I won't have to go through your publicist. But anyway, John, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me. It means a lot to me.
And I just want to thank everyone out there for listening to another episode of Your Voices of Hope. If you would like to be a guest on my show, please go to my website, Your Voices of Hope, and you can sign up there, or go to my Facebook page, Your Voices of Hope, and you can sign up there as well. And as always, I like to leave you with this thought of love yourself. Have a great day. Thank you.
You've been listening to Your Voices of Hope with your host, Michelle Beyer. This podcast and earlier programs are available for viewing on our Facebook page, Your Voices of Hope, or our website, yourvoicesofhope.com. A new podcast is uploaded and ready to view every Wednesday at 7 o'clock p.m.
Keep your head up, keep your head up. You're not